Okay, good morning. We are learning Leila Nishmas Mindel Mari Bas Kalman Reuven, her Neshama Shem Aliyah. We are at the top of Samachim Amud Aleph by the Mishnah. Okay, a Mishnah that talks about different things that a person is allowed to go out with on Shabbos. We're still talking about that topic. So the Mishnah says, "Lo yete ish v'lo b'sayef, v'lo b'keshes, v'lo b'sris, v'lo b'ala, v'lo b'romach." A person is not allowed to go out with a sword, a bow, a shield, an Allah. We'll talk about what that is in the Gemara, or a spear. V'im yatsa chayav chatas. This person does go out. That is not in any way an adornment, and therefore you are chayav chatas. He says, no, these weapons are ornaments. Okay, so and you know, we could imagine this to these things are a disgrace. We could imagine this being like a modern machlokas. You know, some people say, a gun is like an ornament. It looks cool, it looks nice, and therefore it looks nice, and therefore it's not carrying. And we could hear someone saying, what are you talking about? It's a disgrace, right? So this is debate. What's the debate revolving around? Says the Chamim, I'll prove to you it's a disgrace. This pasuk is obviously not referring to the modern era. It's referring to some future era. We'll talk about which era in the Gemara. But the point is, they're going to beat their swords into plowshares, their spears into pruning shears. Their nations will not lift a sword against another, and neither will they learn a war anymore. So what seems to be happening over here is that the Chacham seem to be saying to Eliezer that at the end of the day, since war is clearly from the fact that in some future messianic plus era, as the Gemara will discuss, these things are going to be obliterated. Therefore, by definition, it's not an ideal thing. Meaning, the world, if there are things which change in the times of Mashiach, by definition, whatever those things are not ideal. And therefore, yes, we may need weapons right now, but you can't call it an adornment. Even though a person may say, "Hey, I look good with the sword in my belt." If there's something intrinsically, meaning there's like a subjective aesthetic, there's a subjective like, hey, it looks good, and there's like an objective aesthetic. The Torah is telling us this is ugly. This is something which is by definition broken. It's like saying, well, look, I like what the Temple Mount looks like right now. No, by definition, it's not good. It's not good. It might look nice, but by definition, it's not good. It's supposed to have a base of mikdash. So by definition, having a sword, it may look nice to you, it may look nice to someone else, it may look cool. At the end of the day, it is something which is intrinsically ugly. That's the Chachamim's argument. Okay,
according to the other opinions, where we said that it's not, are they saying that you don't have to bring a carbon, or are they saying that it's not a problem at all?
It seems Rabbi Eliezer is saying they're ornaments. They're ornaments. If they're an ornament, then it would not be. The question would then be, would I take it off or not? So typically, the Gemara, the Mishnah seem to distinguish between men and women in terms of taking things off, meaning adornments taking things off. There's seemingly less of a concern. The Gemara is not going to get into it so much over here, but I believe we touched upon this at some point, that this concern may depend on. For jewelry, there is a concern that a person may take it off and show it to someone else. That doesn't seem to be a rabbinic concern when it comes to like a sword or a shield or something like that. And therefore, it seems like according to Eliezer, it'd be totally mutter. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Biras tahora v'yotzim b'Shabbos. A garter is tahor. You go out with it on Shabbos. So we spoke about this already earlier. A garter basically holds up one's socks or stockings, and you're allowed to go out with it on Shabbos. While we're talking about tuman tower over here, the Gemara is going to discuss later. Kavalim tameim v'yotzim b'Shabbos. Leg chains are tameh, and you're not allowed to go out with them on Shabbos. Okay, and we'll discuss the last two halachos later on, not today. Okay. Ask the Gemara, my vala. The first one of the pieces of armor that was discussed is a ala kulfa. What's a kulfa? Kulfa is like those like sticks, like the club, which has like a chain and like a ball with like spikes in them. Like basically those. The term they use is a mace. I don't know, whatever. But basically, is that the common term? Okay, fine, whatever. Basically, those things you don't want to get in the way of a mace. That's what it is. Okay. So the Gemara is going to have a number of versions of this discussion. Tanya Amrullah Rabbi Eliezer. If you're telling me that weapons are ornaments, why are they going to be destroyed? Why are they going to be eliminated in the times of Mashiach? Because they're going to not be needed, because the pasuk says there's not going to be wars. In other words, Rabbi Eliezer, in this version of this discussion, Rabbi Eliezer is the one quoting the pasuk, and he says, yeah, they're not going to be needed in the times of Mashiach, but they really are intrinsically an ornament. It's just that, on a technicality, since they won't be needed, that's why they're going to not be around, but not because there's something intrinsically flawed with them. okay, there's not going to be war, and therefore I won't need any weapons, right? He's saying it's almost like secondary. Whereas the Chacham are saying, no, we're not going to want weapons in the future, and therefore, by definition, they are ugly. They're not an ornament. Rabbi Eliezer is saying there's not going to be war, and once there's war, there's just there's just like no usage in it. It's like, why would I have such a thing? Okay, fine. It says the Gemara v'tahavi l'nai ba'alma. So he says, fine, even if they're not going to be needed, they could still be an ornament. Okay, meaning now we're asking the Chachamim. The Chachamim, right? They're not. They could still be used as an ornament. Amar Abai needed to have a ashraga b'tiara. According to this person, the Chachamim are saying the reason it's not going to be an ornament. It's not an ornament even in the times of Mashiach at all, is because it's like a lamp in broad daylight. If you're walking around with a lamp in broad daylight, which philosopher did that? Was that Socrates, right? Walked around with a lamp in broad daylight. Right? I don't know. Whatever. The story, and I think it's Socrates. Anyway, the point is a lamp in broad daylight is bizarre looking. Everyone's going to ask you, like, what are you doing? So having weapons in the future, I apologize. This last few lines you're going still to Rabbi Eliezer. The Gemara is asking, you, Rabbi Eliezer, don't you agree that ultimately you're going to be destroyed? Right? If they're really ornaments, why would they be destroyed? So he says, well, we're not going to need them. So he says, still, if you're claiming they're ornaments, then they should still be needed in the times of Mashiach. He says, no, it's like walking around the flashlights in broad daylight. It looks weird, meaning aesthetics only have a value if they still have some value. To walk around with a sword when they have zero value whatsoever, that looks strange. It's like walking around with the light in a light room. Okay, fine. Says the Gemara, Upliga de Shmuel, this brisa, this opinion of Rabbi Eliezer, disagrees with Shmuel, or really this entire brisa, which speaks about the times of war, argues with Shmuel. The only difference between this world and the times of Mashiach is only the question of whether or not we will be subjugated by the nations, but everything else will be the same. Shenemar, what's the source for this? Kilo yechtal evyon mikarav aretz. The poor will not cease from the midst of the land. Okay, so if the pasuk in Nevarim speaks about the future era, and it speaks about poor people, clearly in the times of Mashiach, says Shmuel, there are going to be poor people, and similarly, there's going to be war. It might be a little more peaceful in Eretz Yisrael, but there's still going to be war, and therefore this pasuk, which says L'yisa Gael Gacharev, cannot be talking about the Messianic era, because in that era, the non-Jews, the nations of the world, will still need weapons. There may not be a sword that passes through Eretz Yisrael, but nations will still need swords, nations will still be fighting, and this brisa, which assumes that in the Messianic era there'll be no swords, is not going like Shmuel. Shmuel's view is that in the Messianic era there will still be war. Now, Tosfos points out, we can see this, so it's very small. Tosfos, Mashiach says, Afagav the Hashta in Yerushalayim, the Beis Hamikdash, Vilamos Mashiach Yakol Banoi. He says, wait. The only difference is not only that we will not be subjugated to other nations. Right now, Yerushalayim doesn't exist. Baruch Hashem. We don't have to say it like that. But nowadays, the Beis Hamikdash doesn't exist. We still don't have that. He says, in the times of Mashiach, those things will be built. So when Shmuel said there's absolutely no difference, he's not speaking like critically, he's speaking more generally. But the point is, Shmuel believes that in the times of Mashiach, there will still be war in the world, there will still be, illness in the world, it'll still be a very natural era. Okay, we still have some differences. We'll have Beis Hamikdash, we'll have Yerushalayim. We'll have our own king, but ultimately the differences will be minimal. Misayele l'Rav Chia bar Abba, and this brisa, which speaks about the fact that things will be different in the Messianic era, goes like Rav Chia bar Abba, Damar Rav Chia bar Abba, Kol Hanavim lo nisnabu el amos Mashiach, that all the prophets spoke about Mashiach, meaning Yeshaya and others are speaking about the Messianic era. And therefore, when they said, Lo yisa gai el gai charev, when they said there'll be no war, it is referring to the times of Mashiach. When it comes to Olam Haba, none of the prophets actually spoke about it. The pasuk says, no eye has seen Hashem except you. Okay, so what's going on over here is we have a debate, an interesting debate about what the Messianic era looks like. And according to Shmuel, the Messianic era basically looks very similar to our era right now. This brisa, which assumes La'isa Gael Gacharev is referring to the Messianic era, is obviously not going like Shmuel. Okay, the Rambam in his writings on Mashiach paskins like Shmuel. He says the Messianic era is going to be the same as this era. There's really no big differences. There's no miracles in the Messianic era. It's a time of more peace. It's a time we have a Beis Hamikdash, but there aren't any miracles. Paskin like Shmuel, which is interesting because Shmuel is an Amora, and this brisa is a brisa. It's a Tana. How is it that Shmuel has the right to argue with this brisa, and seemingly the Mishnah as well that he's going against? So the Rashash points out, and this is just an interesting thought when you think about Gada versus Halacha, is that the rules that we normally have about an Amor not being able to argue with a Tana might be limited to Halacha. But when it comes to Agadata, it's possible that Amoram are able to argue with Tanaim, which shows you, there's a general question about, how strong the Masorah is about Agadaic issues. We have our sense of, when it comes to halacha, you're an Ashkenazi Jew. I can tell you more or less where you're going to within basic parameters. When it comes to Ashkafa, there's a much broader parameters. Do you go like this? Do you go like that? We don't have the same system, the same rigid system that we do for halacha, and this would just be one support for that concept, that there isn't the same rigidity, and therefore you could have people like Shmuel arguing with Tanaim, and you have the Rambam paskining like Shmuel against Mishnayos and Braisas. That seems to be okay. Okay, fine. Another version of the same discussion. They asked her Eliezer, if these things are weapons, if these weapons, are ornaments, according to Yomi, Mahem Matilim Mas Mashiach, why are they eliminated in the times of Mashiach? Yeah, the Brisa says no, and this is, again, it's similar version to what we saw before, but Eliezer says they actually will be here during the times of Mashiach. Right, handed to Shmuel, and it goes exactly like Shmuel. Rabbi Chia bar Abba, and it argues with Chia bar Abba. Fine. Amalei Abayla Rav Dimi, Amalei Rav Avia, Amalei Rav Yosef Rav Dimi, Amalei Rav Avia, Amalei Abayla Rav Yosef. Okay, so a bunch of different versions. Who said to who? What's the support for saying that it is an ornament? Pasuk in Tehillim says about the Melech Yisrael, about the King of Israel, gird your sword upon your thigh, you mighty one, for it's your glory and your splendor. The pasuk says, gird your sword, it's glory, it's splendor. So this is, so now we've been challenging Eliezer, now we're supporting Eliezer. The pasuk tells us that wearing a sword is glory, is something which looks nice. Rav Kahana said to Mar, the son of Rav Huna, this is regarding Torah. In other words, why are you learning this? This pasuk is not to be taken literally. It's referring to the person who is fighting in the words of Torah, that there's arguments, and there is, when you learn Torah, it should be done with a certain intensity, with a ferocity. And that's the idea of the strong one and your sword. It's not to be taken literally. Amrlei, Mar, the son of Rav Huna, said to Rav Kahana, what are you talking about? Granted, it might also be talking about Torah, but we have a principle when it comes to Divrei Torah, that you always first go, the pshat is true, and then there's drush. We don't separate them, meaning they're layers, but the pshat is always still true. And the pasuk therefore says that you gird the sword, and it's a beautiful thing. And therefore this would support Rav Eliezer. So Rav Kahana says something amazing. Rav Kahana says back to Mar bar Rav Huna, Kadavena bar Tamne Streishnin, Vavigamirna la lekule Talmuda. When I was 18, I finished Shas. Okay? I was going to say halavai by us, but it's too late. Okay, but when we're this age, we should finish Shas, right? Amazing. He's 18 and finished Shas, meaning he learned everything. And nonetheless, despite my scholarship, I never knew this principle, that the psukim are to be understood literally, even beyond that, that a pasuk will always be understood literally, even if there's a drush as well. Okay, so what's the my Kamash Malan? So what is Rav Kahana? Why is Rav Kahana like telling us this thing, like just boasting that I'm 18 and now I learned this? Why is he telling us this? To Ligmar Inish Vahada Lisp, he's actually teaching us a very important principle, an important one, especially people learning sometimes on a faster pace than they'd like, and that is that Rav Kahana is arguing that he's saying it's a good thing. He's granted I didn't know this principle that a mikra yotzei mipshuta. It's a pretty important principle that whenever you learn Torah, that you have to first learn the pshat, and then you have the drush, then you have the other layers, then you have the limudim. So why is he? But he's saying when I was 18, I learned pshat. I didn't know this principle until now. We don't know how old Rav Kahana is. What's he teaching us? He's teaching us it's worth it just to learn, just like amass, even if you don't understand the ideas behind it. In other words, first just amass the basic knowledge, right? What we call bekiyas. Just learn, and then you go back and you start getting the depth. And Rav Kahana is saying, that's okay. That's more than okay. It's a good thing. When I was 18, I finished it all. Did I understand why and this? No, but I knew it. I learned it. I had the basic details. And then, as time went on, I started to learn the depth behind it. He said, and that's fine, and that's good. And so Rav Kahana is teaching us that if you do daf yomi, if you do like the 2 daf yomi, or whatever it is, even if you go high speed, double speed on the daf, whatever it's going to be, you're learning a lot, you're just amassing the knowledge, that's okay. The point is, you first amass the knowledge, and then you go back and you understand the reasoning behind it. That is a legitimate approach to Talmud Torah. That's what Rav Kahana is trying to teach us. Yeah.
What's the difference between Bekiyas is more well-versed?
Bekiyas is just basically amassing knowledge, even if you don't understand the depth behind it. He's saying
what's
Be'ion is when you learn the reasoning behind it. Yeah.
Okay.
Where like you go more in depth and therefore slower. Yeah.
Do we actually see codified that you're actually supposed to be teaching the pshat first and then the drush?
Oh, a mikra is v'pshuto?
It doesn't seem...
Yeah, that seems to be a big debate among the Rishonim about what to do, right? Rashi doesn't always do that, although he says, I'm coming pshuto shel mikra, he's coming with drush, he's coming with midrashim. His grandson comes along, Rashbam, and always focuses on the pshat. Yeah, it's interesting. Okay, Siman Zaros. The next, the mnemonic to remember the next Gemara is Zaros. Each letter represents the different names of the people that we're about to quote. A bunch of different approaches to Talmud Torah. It seems like a bunch of different approaches. It sounds like to me, although I'm just suggesting that it sounds like they are debating about the different approach to Talmud Torah and the way to learn the Chavrusa. But let's read closely with them if you agree. Two scholars who are sharpening one another with halacha. Kadosh Baruch Hu matzliach lahem. Hashem gives them success. And with your splendor succeed. Don't read of a hadarcha, which is your splendor, but rather the hey and the ches should be interchanged, and the reish and the dalid, instead of your splendor, you're sharpening, meaning by sharpening, you'll be successful. You should learn by, when we learn, we should be like challenging each other. We should be like always arguing with each other, and doing that, it sharpens each other. Right? When we debate, it brings out like a sharper understanding. V'lo od el sh'on l'gdula, it actually helps a person go to greatness. Shnemer tzlach rechav, the pasuk continues and says, succeed, and you'll ride on royal horses. Maybe if you're doing so, you're just arguing for the sake of showing your intellectual superiority. Tamalomar advar emes. No, it's only for the sake of truth. Let's say a person becomes arrogant because of their great debating skills. Tamalomar va'an v'tzedek, and righteous humility. Okay, most of it has to be done with humility. But most of the Torah yamin shnemer torcha noras yamincha. And your right hand will teach you awesome things which are awesome. Okay, if you learn this way, you sharpen each other. It doesn't mean your hand will. It doesn't mean that you'll get these awesome things. Rather, what a person will get are the things which are connected to the right hand of the Torah. What is that? The famous pasuk which says length that a person will have a length of days in the Torah's right hand, in her left hand are wealth and honor. Does that mean in the right hand there is a long life but not wealth or honor? What's going on over here? A person who deals with the Torah with right-handedly. What does that mean? So if any lefties? No, we spoke about this. No lefties, right? So right-handedly you are. Just ignore us, Michael. Let's go. So right-handedly. Oh, right, that's what it was. Right. So right-handedly means a person like really delves into it. Like when you do things, if I'm typing with my left hand, it's not going to be as precise, or I'm trying to screw something. Me, a righty. If I'm going to do something, using a hammer with my left hand, it's not going to be so precise. If I use my right hand, it's precise, it's done well. For righty. Okay, so let's go. So I'm getting stares. Okay, just put on your tefillin. So the Gemara says, if you do it with your right hand, meaning you do it well, you do it like with detail, you do it with attention. Then you get length of days and you get wealth and honor. But if you do it with your left hand, meaning you don't do it so well, there's wealth and honor, but there's no length of days. In other words, what we're saying, when we approach Torah, we have to do it really well. Amar Rav Yirmiyah, Amar Rav Shimon Lakish, two scholars who are pleasant to one another while they debate. Hashem listens to them. So again, are these just random statements, or there's a debate over here? How to learn the Chavrusa, right? The first opinion says, yell at each other, scream at each other. I remember the first time I learned to my house, after I was married, my Chavrusa came over, and we were learning Night Seder, and after my Chavrusa left, my wife was like, why would you do that? He's like, one of your friends. We're like, no, this is how we learn, we're like best friends. But fine, Rav Yirmiyah says, name Rav Shlakish, no, the way to learn is to be pleasant, is to be soft, right? Shenemar az nidbru yirei Hashem, then those who fear Hashem will speak to one another. Ein dibur lanachas, when it says dibur, refers to speaking nicely. Shnemer yadber am tachtenu, we will humble people beneath us. The word dibur over here speaks to humility. Okay, so the pasuk, according to this approach, the idea is that we should, when learning the Chavrusa, we speak nicely, and Hashem then listens. Ma'il chosh v'shmo, the end of the pasuk says, and those who ponder Hashem's name, Amar Ami afilu hayoshev lasos mitzvah v'nenas, chishev, lasos mitzvah v'nenas, v'lo asa malakasov ki asa, that we learn from here. Okay, how we learn from this pasuk another time, but basically a beautiful, incredible thing that a person who wants to do a mitzvah, and then something happens, right? You came to learn this morning, and then you got in a traffic jam, right? So you didn't end up learning. Hashem considers it. Check. You can write on the Amud Yomi on the Daf Yomi chat. I did Amud Yomi because Hashem considers it like you were there. If you really tried, and then you had an onus happened, something blocked you from doing it. It's as if you did it. Amar Rav Bar Idi Kol Osa Mitzvah K'Ma'amara. Anyone who performs a commandment in a proper way, the way the Rambam learns this means Lishma. Nothing bad happens to you. Someone who guards the commandments shall know no evil thing. So it could mean that Hashem protects you from evil. The Rambam in his Perish Mishnayos, we learned this over Shabbos for those who are here, he says basically you do a mitzvah l'shma, that's your ticket to Olam Haba. It doesn't mean in this world, but it means that what the Rambam says, like, the reason Hashem gave us 613 mitzvahs is for the opportunity to do one mitzvah l'shma. It's very hard to do mitzvah l'shma, right? How often can we say, I'm doing this mitzvah 100% for altruistic reasons? So often it makes me feel good, it makes this person proud of me, it makes, I do it for this, I do it for reward. All those things are not l'shma, but maybe Hashem gave us so many mitzvahs and hopefully, a lifetime to do those mitzvahs so that we can do one mitzvah l'shma. When I do that, that's my ticket to Olam Haba. Because to get into Olam Haba, I need to have something which transcends this world. Anytime I'm doing a mitzvah lo l'shma, right? It's connected to this world. I need to get out of this world. So that's perhaps what this pasuk means. Amar Ravasi v'Tamer of Chanina feel Kadosh Baruch Hu goes to exert even Hashem decreed a harsh punishment to Mevatla. He will annul it. Shnemar Kasher Dvar Melech Shilton Amiyamar Lo Matasa. The word of the king has authority. Who could say to him, "What are you doing?" Usmichle Shom Mitzvah Yedid. Yet it says after that, a person does mitzvos, then nothing bad will happen. Meaning even if Hashem made a harsh decree, nothing will happen to him. Amar Rabba Amar Rav Shimon Lakish Shnei Talmidei Chachamim Hamakshivim Zel Lezev Alacha. Different approach. Not that you speak nicely, but two Talmidei Chachamim who let the other one go first. No, you go first. No, you go first. No, you go first. We let the other person speak first. That's the approach. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Shemei Lekolon. Hashem listens to their voice. Shnemar Hayoshev Baganim Chaver Makshivim Lekol Yashmieni. You sit and you dwell in the gardens. The companions listen to your voices. Let me. Hashem says, let me hear it. If they don't listen to one another, then they cause the Shekhinah to run away. So right, three different approaches. One, you yell and scream at each other. One, you go ahead and you speak nicely. And the third is you just let the other person speak first. Amar Abba, Amar Rav Shimon Lakish, Shnei Talmidei Chachamim Hamadgilim Zel Lezev Alacha. Two scholars who gather one another, they teach one another. Okay, without a teacher, they support each other. Baruch Hu Ov and Hashem loves them. Shnemar v'diglo alai ahava, and his banner, a banner is what gathers people together. Over me is love. Amar Rava v'hu diyadid source of the That's only if they know what they're talking about. In other words, even if they might not be like complete like teachers, it only is helpful if they actually know enough that they could teach each other. If they stop learning together and both of them don't really know what's flying, that's not helpful. And that's only when they don't have a teacher. If they have a teacher, go to the teacher. We're talking a case where they don't have a teacher and they know enough that they can help each other, and that's when it's okay. Amar Abba, Amar Shimon Lakish, Gadol Hamalva Yosem, and now we just have memros in the name, the same people of Abba in the name of Shimon Lakish. Okay, so Gadol Hamalva Yosem Osid Tzedakah. One who lends is greater than one who gives tzedakah. Umatzah Lakis Yosem Mikul, and a person who gives someone help to work, that's the best, right? In other words, a person comes to you for money, the best thing to do is not even to lend, to give them. It's better than to give is to lend, and better than to lend is to give people money. There was once, very quickly,
Or to teach
Or teach them a job, right? Teach them a job, right? I was once in a shul in Queens, and I saw this young guy coming over to a wealthy guy asking for some money, and they have a conversation. Turns to the end of the conversation, he says, "Come to my office." He's literally asking for money. He said, "I have a work, a job for 2 months." He said he was a teacher. He said, "Come to my office tomorrow. I have a job for you." Like mamish, like this is it. It was like it's wild. Okay, Amar Rav Abba, Amar Rav Shimon Lakish, Im Tamid Chamim Nokev V'Noter Kedach Hashu Chagrel Masnecha Im Am Aretzu Chassid Al Tadir B'Shchunaso. Fascinating thing. If you have a Talmid Chacham who could teach you Torah, but he has bad midos, gird your loins. Just sit it out. Learn from him, because there's value in learning from a Talmid Chacham, from learning from someone, even if they have bad midos. If it's Am Aretz who is very pious, don't live next to him because he's going to have a bad influence on you. Fascinating thing, right? So it's important to learn Torah. So important to learn Torah that we should even learn Torah from. It's not ideal. Obviously, you want to learn from a Talmid Chacham who is act like an angel. The Pesukim tell us, but nonetheless, the Gemara tells us elsewhere. But the point is that if that's all you have, better to learn from a Talmid Chacham, even if he has bad midos, and better to stay away from Am Aretz, even if he is pious. Okay, we'll have to stop here. Okay, have a great day.